guys, thanks for joining me. This is Amir Khillah from Centurion. I am very fortunate to have Sergeant Don Gulla here with us. Um, had the pleasure and the honor of training with Sergeant Gulla at ILEDA a couple years ago. On a side note, highly recommend that you check out ILEDA, International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association. You get to meet some phenomenal people, some of the best in the industry. And if you're a law enforcement trainer, you really should be networking with these people like Sergeant Gulla here. Sarge, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Help our listeners understand what makes you a world-class expert on subject control. Give us some of your background.
Oh, I've been playing around in martial arts since 10 years old. Started with boxing competitively, wrestling in high school, junior high. Judo was one of the arts I was blessed to get from high school. My math teacher was a Hall of Fame judo practitioner, one of the best in the world at the time. And the high school has a lineage that they all became generally national champs. So that judo was one of those big things that really changed my, I was a JV wrestler one year, became third in state the next year just based on adding judo to my play, which was interesting. Once I graduated high school, started in some kung fu karate, did like kickboxing, in the era where like Bill Wallace and everything, did competitive karate, four-time World Police and Fire Game gold medalist. And I've been playing around with martial arts long enough that I was inducted in the Martial Art Hall of Fame about 4 years ago. So, but I'm still a student, right? So started with BJJ, in the 90s. We brought over Professor Marcelo Alonso from Brazil under the Carlson Gracie Jr. team. But we started molding in 1990 a police training group called a wrestling that I founded, that everyone that came to the academy, basically we had a chance to work out with 30 new recruits every month that had highly skilled backgrounds, and we got a chance to test all the stuff we were doing. That's where a lot of the techniques, or does it work, doesn't it work, and with a duty belt on. But the nice thing about it is we have different training groups that we get together yearly, and we kind of cross-pollinate with, what are you guys doing here for weapon retention? How do you get a guy out of a car? We had a certain situation, so we try to make it dedicated to law enforcement in particular, but it kind of goes across many different areas too.
That's awesome. Networking is huge, and being able to connect with people like you and kind of pick each other's brains, because it's a very fluid and dynamic change in the threat. So that's amazing. And having the ability to do your research and development in an academy is amazing as well, because you're actually testing your system and you're testing your techniques. That's awesome. Looking past the academy, what are your thoughts on training for individual officers? Are we getting enough subject control, defensive tactics training in? Are we setting up our guys and girls for failure? Do the departments provide enough training? And if not, what should individual officers do to better themselves?
So because we had a chance to do a lot of training nationwide, I always ask those questions when I go to the different agencies. And the answer is no, we don't, right? We don't do enough. Well, even in the academy environment, we spend too much time on technique bases, right? And the research is showing that by the time they leave the academy, the stuff they learned at the beginning, they can't even reproduce even when they're in the academy. So how can we expect them to do that 2 years down the road? So it's kind of like you have to kind of hold yourself responsible for fitness. So the example would be, I was really fit in the academy. That's all I need. Well, if you don't continue with it, once you leave the academy, it's not going to help you at all when you have to do the foot chase for a couple minutes and then wrestle with the person. So I think it's the officer's responsibility to find someone locally they can train with that they trust. And that's one of the problem areas, is that, since a lot of places have gone towards like the MMA, right, that they walk in and there's a knucklehead that they arrested, 2 weeks ago. It's like, you don't want to go there. Your family doesn't want to go there. So it's really someone that you need to be able to trust. That's more of a family environment. But the benefit is that, one, you get the chance to roll against someone that's resisting, have someone punch you, defend against it, get some fitness out of it because you're doing all the things there. But it's just like brushing your teeth. You got to do it, daily, every other day. right, to keep healthy, because it's like my wrestling coach used to say that, you know, when you go out, you run, you do your push-ups, you do your sit-ups, fitness, right? That's putting money in the bank, right? And you never know when you're going to have to frickin' write a check or debit from it. And because you can't do that in the middle of like, oh, I wish I'd done this, you know, earlier. But finding, you know, training partners are probably the key to defensive tactics, period. Because you have to train with people you trust, and finding someone you can roll with that won't break you, right? And let's say that you're a 50-year-old officer and you're just getting into it, right? I don't want to go on there and get beat up by the 20-year-olds that are just trying to show me up, especially if they find out you're a police officer. Holy cow. And they're really going to tune it up. So getting in there, roll with someone to your threshold. The other benefit of a good training partner is that they will call out when you have a technique. Right? You're there and you go, no, look right here. Just push my elbow across, get control. You have me, but they don't realize it. So that's where that expertise of your partner, because a lot of time you're forcing a technique, but just a little bit of tweaking. That's where either the instructor watching or the instructor rolling with you is the most valuable, because they will give you the cues on what you need to do based on the positioning.
Absolutely. It's a fine balance between getting proper resistance, preventing injury, and also helping you grow, pointing out these deficiencies or areas of improvement. That's absolutely right. Now, Sarge, if an individual officer would like to go out and seek some kind of training, what style or styles would you recommend? And if you do recommend multiple styles, do you have a particular order you would like them to start learning in?
I'm going to go on, because where you're living, it may only have 2 schools. So, and everything I find is divided up into the pie of your life and how much time you have to dedicate to family, right, to work, to working out. So if you can find someone, well, first quiz other officers in your area. What are they doing, right? Who are you going? Because then they have someone they can trust. And you also have a training partner that you can work out with later. So I would say MMA puts a lot of stuff together with striking, takedowns, but you really have to look at the gym you're going to, and is it going to take you through where you need to go? If you have, so MMA kind of combines everything together with punching, striking. So when we first started doing training with Eric Paulson back in the 90s, right, before MMA, right, they knew what they needed to do, very technical. We added gun belt onto it. Eric taught us, like, be able to go to this control position, that control. Oh, we got to change it here. So someone that can recognize that you're a law enforcement officer and tweak some of the techniques, striking. So example would be if they promote a right lead striking platform, they want everything like a Jeet Kune Do. They want everything right lead, right? Strong side, you go like, but I have a gun on my hip right here. You go like, see, that's what they need to be able to change. So recognizing what you're going to use it for later. So find what's available to you. MMA works well. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has become one of the hot ones in your area. So those are probably the easiest to find. But really check out the person, see if there's any lineage that helps in the law enforcement. If there's a law enforcement officer that's there, that's a big plus, because they know how to kind of tweak stuff. Also, if you're training to become like an instructor at your agency, right, the person that goes out and seeks the training is the one they look at later to go like, you know what, can you come in and help out with training? In fact, we're going to make you a bad guy. So you got to go and roll with the officers when they're resisting. Okay, you get beat up a little bit, but down the road they go like, hey, let's send you to the DT school. In fact, we're going to send you another. It's kind of like paying dividends down the road. But that's how you get introduced into it. But also playing a bad guy in DT, you learn so much because you know what it's like to be on the other side of the arrest.
Absolutely.
So MMA, and here's the deal. There's so many different MMAs. I hate to say that, but there's you have to look at, is there people there just training for MMA fights, right? And they don't care. You're just there to become like a piece of meat and you're going to get beat up. That's not where you want to go. I prefer Gied Jiu-Jitsu over slick because in our environment, we're more likely to grab onto someone. Plus, you're able to apply so many more techniques with the cloth, that's a benefit that once you start going slick, you could start losing that. So MMA, and then the other one would be, so Krav. Krav is one that's pretty easy to find, but here's the deal. I found that there is no really national recognized body for Krav. I mean, there's a bunch of different ones, but when you go to it, they're all their own individual. It's like there's no central location. So we had an officer or deputy named Tony Aston that was doing Krav back in the 90s that came out. He was one of the highest level guys in the Krav system. And even back then, I don't know what's happening with it, but because you can go to certain schools and become a Krav instructor, right? And the lineage is not as tight as other systems. You just have to be careful. But the benefit of Krav is that they do teach you some striking. They do teach you gun out takeaways, not as good on just pure weapon retention in your holster, but it is military. So there's different versions. There's a police version. There's a civilian version or military. So finding one that kind of works in your area, but kind of it's that balance, right? Don't put all your eggs in the grappling. Don't put it all in the striking. And if the school has the ability to open the door to let like law enforcement specific training, that's a big one. And a lot of dojos will do that for you. They'll go like, let's do a special group Saturday morning, show up at this time, and we'll get together. We're going to do just law enforcement, right? Include firefighters, EMT, any civilians that you trust to bring in, because the more expertise you have, or as I say, the better your people can beat you up, it makes you better. Absolutely. Right? So your training partners are really high up on the scale, because let's say I'm really good at grappling, but I suck at punching, right? And you're around all people that are grapplers, they're not going to be able to teach you how to punch, right? And then put it into context, okay, you can only punch, I can only grapple. You have to get through the punches. Gee, sounds like police work, huh? Get in, grab them, throw them, take them down. Okay, let's get them in handcuffs. So really, if you take it through that at a certain percentage of resistance, and so you can do that both in MMA, right? So you're doing your physical skills, focus mitt drills, takedowns, submissions. BJJ covers a lot of good control and hold submissions, really some good technical stuff. And depending on your agency, if they allow any type of, carotid sleeper holds, that's a good place to not only learn how to apply them, but also how to defeat them. And that's one of the biggest things that I found is that because most law enforcement agencies are so fearful of the LVNR carotid sleeper hold, they don't teach it, number one, which means no one knows how to defend it. And I go, that's like the number one, because everyone, the local box boy down at the supermarket is an MMA fighter, right? He's going to sneak in behind you, freaking slap that on. You're going to be going like,
First thing you learn.
Too late. So.
Why do you think that is, Sarge? Why is it so taboo, the vascular neck restraints? Why is it so shied away from? Why are we so scared of it?
So unfortunately, the research actually came from a King County, where I'm from, medical examiner that put out bad data years ago, and that's what everyone believes. See, that's how it works. And all the old chiefs remember that data that said like, oh, you apply this and people die, right? So they said it's deadly force. Right. Well, I was actually in the deadly force symposium where that Dr. Ray had to actually say like, I was wrong. The research was wrong. And this is before they understood like excited delirium, right? To where people came in, they're violent, they get into a grappling match, they apply the LVNR, the carotid sleeper hold, and the person dies. Well, guess what? It wasn't from the hold, it was the process that was going on. But now everyone is like, oh my God. So when you go back and track history of like judo, how often, because even in judo, like a bar arm choke is legal. So you can do a straight bar arm choke on the throat. That's a legal technique. So we have to kind of overcome that. And hopefully with the research that we're doing, we want to find the agencies that are using it, what's working, because the bad part about a lot of law enforcement training is that they take away so many tools when the officer needs it. they'll never go to it. So some type of neck restraint hold that would have worked and stopped the fight early, it's not there. Now we end up having to shoot the person. So see,
or
what do you want?
ground and
you got
pound
that.
them for 30 strikes
Yeah.
in the face. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. You got one or the other. But when you get to, they're hesitant to use any force. By the time they get to the deadly force encounter, now they're going to go to the object that's probably going to be on their belt, which is a gun.
Right. The most familiar.
Yeah.
You mentioned research, and I'm very excited to get to that research that you're doing. But before we do, I just want to give a disclaimer or a caveat and reiterate what Sarge said. When you go out there and sign up for a martial arts school, if our cadets or our new officers are going to run out there and do that, we have to be careful, because some martial arts schools, the way they train, could build bad habits for law enforcement. Things like pulling guard, getting too comfortable on your back. It doesn't really translate well when we're in our duty gear. So that's one thing that you have to really look for. Make sure that instructor at least is flexible enough to adapt their teaching style to accommodate your gear and the job description. So with that being said, Sarge, please mention a little bit of the research that you're involved with the Department of Justice right now.
So right now we're sending out requests for information. So we're sending out to the agencies for the academies. What are you teaching? How many hours? How much includes, striking, grappling? So we're sending out to the agencies and the police academies. The follow-up's going to be a survey. Survey's going to be instructors. What are you teaching? How much is there any scenario based? Is it ground? Is it striking? How much time do you spend? Then we take it to the line officer, which it took me, I'm not kidding, a month to put together the questions as far as not only what you were taught in the academy, but what do you commonly use on the street, right? Have you gone to some go-to ones that you just came up with, right? But then we also ask, well, what's your background? Oh, you're a college wrestler. I have an idea of what your takedown is going to look like. Oh, you're a semi-pro boxer. Your go-to is what? Jab cross. So we need to know their backgrounds, military backgrounds, right? BJJ, everything. We want martial arts, their background. But what works, and are they getting training in service yearly? Because we want to see, like, some agencies get twice a year, but it's only 4-hour blocks. There's some agencies that actually do quarterly training, DT, and firearms. So, but that's not the norm. Then one of the biggest problems that I see is that most agencies in the United States are less than 20 officers on their department total. So you talk about a big, agency, it's one thing, but now, we only got 20 people. There's maybe me and another guy working because we got a detective, we got the chief, we got 3 shifts. So how do I find training now? Or because we ask the questions, how easy do you get backup? How quick does we get there? Well, I'm the only person working. So now, see, those are the things that we don't take into consideration. Do you carry a taser? Do you carry some type of baton? Do you carry a patrol carry knife? So we can kind of see where people are at. And we also kind of ask, how confident are their ability to go on and go hands-on? Or do you not want to go hands-on? So, and we actually added some questions to cover where we're at right now, and that is, with the COVID-19, has it changed? Right? So are you less likely, more likely? What's your PPE, right? If you had to go on against someone that had it. So that's another layer that we're adding. And we'll be sending those out, and I'll probably be sending one to you so you can fill it out and pass it along, because we want to get it from as many people as possible, because the more input we get, the better the data we have, the more we can push to better training.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you glean this data, when you distill it, what are we looking to accomplish? What do you think the results are going to be?
So with the grant, basically, we're going to look at all the data. We're going to go to a couple selected academies. We're going to develop kind of the training curriculum, test it through the academy, and then see, how long does it last down the road. But right now we're on the 2-year schedule. We'll probably have to extend it beyond there to see what happens with it. But what training are you doing? And does it pay dividends on the street? Because don't tell me what you're doing. Show me the video of your officers using it on the street, right? And in fact, I love going to a department and playing a video from the department. I go like, so when did you start teaching this technique? And they go, well, we don't. I go like, see where I'm going? that they're doing all these things,
Right.
but it's just because they do what they got to do to get the person in the custody.
There's a big disconnect between how well the instructor could do a technique and how well
Yes,
he could transfer that knowledge onto the frontline officer.
absolutely.
It's huge.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is really, I think every defensive tactic system should be tested by showing the outcome of what the officers are doing on the street, or like some of the real progressive programs. So Vancouver, British Columbia, and Canada, actually their program is based on judo, right? And it's almost the whole curriculum is judo, not really any strikes, but they found that the use of force went down, control went up, and the researchers from, I think, Simon Fraser that went there and watched, they go like, holy cow, whatever you're doing, it's working. And the nice thing about it is that they learn how to grab onto someone, they learn how to take someone down, they know team tactics, but they look at every use of force, body-worn camera, every year, crunch that data together, and reevaluate their program to train to match what's happening on the street. Gee, what a concept.
So progressive. That's
Yes.
amazing.
So,
What's your opinion on this? Before we get into your contact information, from my experience working on the street, it seems like the guys and girls that are more competent with their hands, that are not scared to get into a hands-on situation, seem to have to resort to hands-on a lot less than the untrained officers. Have you found that to be true?
absolutely true.
Okay.
So we call that the calm and confidence theory, and it goes to if you push towards, so if you get fearful on the street, so I don't know if I can handle this person, the most common reaction to fear to combat it is anger. That's built into us. That's our defense mechanism. So the person here, I'm going, so we elevate versus the person goes like, I've been here before, I can handle this, right? They're able to talk longer, right? And here's the deal, is that the person that you're going up against, guess what they see? Gosh, this person's not getting, wound up. They're calm. What's this person know I don't know about? So actually, that's one of the best de-escalation techniques is to have that person that's calm, confident in their ability because they're not getting angry. They're not throwing the F-bombs, right? And that's the person that you want to model to their officers. But guess what? If they don't have the training to match it, right, they're always going to go so far and then all of a sudden they're in the fear mode. So really testing people and allowing them to do it, it's like swimming, right? If you just throw someone in the water, they're going to freak out. They're not going to like the water. If you let them get in the shallow end, move around a little bit, teach them some techniques, let them get fit to where they can swim up and down the water, it's the same thing. But if they've never been in the water before, like a lot of new recruits have never been in a fight before, I tell you what, the first time they start getting fearful, it's like, holy cow, my taser doesn't work. Now what?
Over reliance on technology. Yes.
I got to call for backup because this thing's not working.
He's not doing what he's supposed to do.
Exactly.
Oh, I am so excited, Sarge, to participate in your research and see the results. And boy, if we can get some national standards on training requirements, ongoing training, that would be amazing. I'd love to be part of that. Now, you are such a wealth of knowledge, and I would like to connect you to my cadets and officers in the area. Would you please share how they could reach out and find you on social media, your website, etc.?
So the website is www.arrestling.com, right? ARRESTLING. And I'm also on, if you Sergeant Don Gulla, SGT DON, Gulla GULLA. That's an Instagram. And I'm always posting stuff on there. Some of it's pretty serious, but there's a lot of, throwing sharp objects, so don't pay attention to those too much. But we've done some promos from the COVID, like cuffing by yourself to where you're actually doing stuff. But we're probably going to be doing a lot more content specific down the road to where we want to actually start breaking down not only a situation where officers using force, but freezing it and then saying, here's a likely technique you should attempt. And maybe not even a technique, but a principle, because if you don't recognize resistance, which in the academy, we don't do enough of that. It's usually our partner, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Well,
It's not like that on the street.
It's not like that. So developing flow is you have to kind of play. And you know that as well as I do. You go out and you're rolling. You're not trying to kill each other, but you are finding the weak points, right? It's like when I spar with someone, especially like stand-up, the first minute is just like poker, finding their tells. Right? If I throw a jab, are they low on their right? Right? If I throw a kick, are they lowering their hands? But until you pick those up, right, and the person I'm fighting against is doing the same thing. So really, and on the street, we don't have enough time to analyze that, but I need to know that what it looks like when the person goes like, I'm not going to jail, and they shift their shoulder and their fist balls up, maybe I'm going to get punched. So,
that's awesome.
But if you've never been there, difficult to do.
Absolutely. Well, really appreciate your time, Sarge. Hope our guys reach out to you if they have any questions, and I look forward to seeing that research and being part of it.
And so we're really going to kick that out once we get especially the line officers. I'll get that information to you. You can kick it out to your guys because we really want to get it kind of the pulse of what's happening. And just in the last 2 weeks, we've been contacted by states that are now completely revamping their entire defensive tactics program, which I've never heard of. And now they're looking for all the questions. What are the things that we need to do? How much time are we spending? Are the recruits really coming away with something they can use versus the old silo? Okay, here's firearms. Oh yeah, here's DT. Here's CIT, right? It has to be a flow. And unfortunately, sometimes the academy doesn't have enough time to do everything we need to do.
Well, that's very inspirational. It's inspirational, and it gives me a lot of hope that states are reaching out and they're starting to think about these things. That's great.
Well, hopefully we can get some type of standard that people can even just pick from. Let's say there's maybe 8 outcome things they need to be able to do to arrest someone. And because you can't use the LVNR or some type of carotid, you can't use that one, but you'll use the one that you can, right? So you kind of pick, like, we want to do strikes. What's the best way to teach strikes? How do I practice learning to not flinch when I get punched, right? And you know how long that takes. So that's going to be probably outside the scope of the academy, right? But things to think about down the road.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarge.
All right. So I will see you at ILETA.
I will be there. See you in August.
Okay. Good. So I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to go. Everyone's got to be ready for training by the time that comes around. So get us out of the house, get us there, and we'll be able to talk more there. In fact, we're going to be talking about that research at the ILETA.
I will sign up for that. I'd love to see it.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Sarge. Stay safe.
Thanks. All right. Later.